How long you been doing the podcast for? I feel like you got a lot of episodes.
Yeah, I started in like August of 2019. The
Okay.
first year was kind of sporadic, maybe a couple episodes out every other month or every other week, depending on what I
Hmm.
could do. But I really like. I think the pandemic kind of was a blessing because I think since 2021 I haven't missed a Friday since then, since like March
Hmm.
of 2021. So it's been kind of crazy. I think your guys'
Yeah.
episode would be like episode like 230 something. So
Wow.
Damn.
yeah.
I've seen your sticker in Lager House in
Oh hell
Detroit.
yeah!
Yeah. Did you put that there, or did it
No,
made its way out here?
it's made its way. I have a
Yeah.
strong feeling that I got to give a shout out to Ryan over at the Fresh Finds podcast.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
guess that was him.
Okay.
Shout
That's
out
how I
Ryan.
that's how I found out about yours. We've been on Fresh Finds in the past. So,
Yeah, when you guys hit me up, I was like, this name looks really familiar,
yeah.
and I know like Brian's posted about you guys a few different times, so that's
Yeah.
nice to kind of get kind of full circle on it.
Yeah. He's a great guy. Good supporter, good podcast.
Yeah, great dude. I'm happy that I'm in the podcast scene with him.
Hmm.
You know, he's the best. Hopefully one of these days I get to meet him in person finally.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, all right, so what I'll do here is I'll count us down. We'll crack these drinks if you guys have an unopened one, and then I'll do the little intro, bring the three of you in, and we'll just have a good time. All right, if everyone's ready, in three, two, one. Welcome to the Beers with Bands podcast with your host, Michael Torres. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beers with Bands. This week, I'm sitting down with the band TOED. How y'all doing?
Doing all
Hello.
Great. Thank
right.
you for
Doing
having
good.
us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming through. You know, this is it's always it's always nice having like a recording on a Monday because Mondays are so mundane. First day back in the office, but this is at least something fun to look forward to at the end of my day. I'm just like make it through 8 hours of just corporate work, and then I get to have beers and talk about music and just like bullshit for an evening. So I really appreciate you guys coming through.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
That's very
appreciate you.
very strategic planning on your part.
Yeah. For people that might not be aware of Toad, you guys are like a funk, blues, rock band, little bit of jam in there from based out of Detroit. Um, we'll talk history here in just a second, but before we get too far, can you kind of go around the room and say who you are and what you do in Toad?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll kick that off. My name is Kai Althouse. We kind of have a a back and forth type of deal with the band, so a lot of people do various things. So I sing at times, I play guitar half the time, and then I play bass half the time. But we switch around, kind of like Wolfpack or the Beatles might. You know.
Um, I'm Simon. I mostly sing, um, but I like to consider myself a writer, and I'm also lead tambourine.
Hell yeah.
I'm Jahan, and I handle all of the recording and the mixing and mastering of all of our work. And I'll switch off when Kai's playing bass. I'm on guitar. When Kai's on guitar, I'm on bass.
Now, like, how do you guys determine like when the right moment is for Jahan to be on guitar and Kai to be on bass and vice versa? Because like that's got to be, as most bands, everyone's kind of sticking to their main instrument. But how do you decide when you get to like flip like that?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely been a learning curve because when we first started, the band predated Jahan being in it, but then when Jahan came in, he really was brought in to fill in for a bass player who couldn't make it, but he eventually took over, was more invested, and we went on from there. But for a while, even with Jahan in, he was bass, I was guitar. Um, but Jahan is by trade a guitar player and is an incredible guitar player, and is, it just kind of didn't make sense to not tap that well. Um, and I like playing bass. I mean, I don't mind switching it up. In the early days, it would depend. Like songs I wrote, I primarily was playing guitar. But then we had a project where Simon came into the band. Simon also been in the band for almost 2 years now, right, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was some time predating that. But when he came into the band, him and Jahan had a host of songs that they had written together where Jahan was on guitar. So those songs, he was going to play on guitar and I was going to play on bass. It just kind of made sense based on who wrote what, the feel of those songs, and the voice of when we play each other's instruments. But then also you get to the point like in a live set when you start amassing more songs, we can't be switching back and forth every time. So when you're crafting a set list, you have to do it in a way that, you think represents the band, maintains energy, and develops that emotion throughout that you want to represent your group, but also like we can't be switching all the time. So it kind of, we try to do only one switch a show. So you kind of front load, back load various songs. But yeah, so that's kind of, at least in terms of the live version and writing, how I think we kind of have done that to this point.
It's always cool watching bands kind of have that I don't know if it's like ambidextrousness to it, where like you can just kind of be like, okay, like this song we're gonna kind of flip it this way, or I've seen it before where a lot of drummers will sing key parts of songs and stuff like that. Like having that versatility in a band is always really kind of cool, and just like add something different to at least the live performance, because obviously you get half the set with Kai playing and then you switch over to Jahan playing. Like it adds up that little flair to the performance.
Yeah, and I think creatively it just expands. Like I wouldn't write a song the same way Jahan would, and vice versa. So it just opens up a breadth of what we can produce, and there's no limit. And I think the fact that we've all been willing to do that experimentation and be diverse in our writing and delivery, I think it's led to a lot of fun and good collaboration.
I think this is an untapped market for someone to like. We've seen the double guitar, and I could be wrong in what I'm about to say, but do we have the combo guitar bass set up yet, where you guys could just each like then just that switch off, you guys could just like intermix that whole set list?
Yeah, I stand behind Jahan. Put my arms behind him.
Well, I
That
joined
sounds
the
like something you'd
band. I joined the band as a bass player, and I was playing bass as out of necessity. So every band that I've joined has always been, we need a bass player. I come in as a guitar player who plays bass out of necessity, and it's like a guitar player, like they dread it. It's like, oh, I have to play bass. I've been playing all this guitar. I want to play guitar, but I got to play bass. But um, after playing it for so long now, just by being forced to, I actually really, really enjoy playing bass. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's really not like a difficult decision of, okay, who's going to play guitar for this one, or who has to play bass for this one. It's like I'm more than happy to play either for any of them now, because I've really fallen in love with both of them.
Yeah.
I also think that like a funk bass is a lot more fun to play than just like a bass for anything else, because like that's my favorite thing about listening to this style of music is just listening to those bass tones and like the bass lines that are just going to take you on this ride through the song. Like they hit so well, and I don't play bass, but I would play bass for like a version of a funk band if possible.
Yep. That
Yeah,
Bootsy
very, very
Collins,
active lines.
just syncopated, just keeping that groove going.
Right?
Just keeps the energy moving.
And what's funny is Simon has the best bass out of all of us.
I
Well,
do.
And Simon, don't you write your songs primarily on the bass?
Yeah, so I write every song I've written is just a bass line first, and then everything else comes later. Because it's my philosophy that a bass, like you said, a bass line has to take you all the way through and like kind of lead the song.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. It is. We'll probably get into this too when we start talking more about the upcoming record. But I love that like kind of mentality of like starting with that, like the rhythmic bass, and then just like kind of just fleshing out from there. I love that idea. Um, like I said, tangents are cool. We already went on one to see about all that. For people that are new to Toad, you guys have kind of been around since 2022. Debut EP, Hot Tub Toad Machine came out in July of 2022, with the follow up EP coming. All the Way Home came out in December of 23. It's been a pretty, I feel like, busy couple of years for you guys. Obviously, two EPs, a handful of singles, and now we're kind of leading into what will be the debut LP coming up for you guys. How I kind of ask everyone this that decides to go down the LP route, because I think Hot Tub Toad Machine was 4 or 5 songs. Second EP was 3 songs. How daunting was it to decide like, hey, we're gonna do an LP this time around? Because I know it's like it's a more work has to be put into it. Obviously, more bigger collection of songs, but like, what was that? How was it to come over that hurdle?
The I feel like the initial decision to be like, okay, we're gonna do an album now was like so easy, like maybe too easy. We were all just like we have a lot of songs, it's no problem. And like only recently has it felt like, oh man, we really gotta we gotta do this. Um, but it's just so much fun that even working hard, like it doesn't feel like you're working. So to me, like the only hurdle is just the availability and the time you can put into it.
Yeah, that's well said. I think I agree. I mean, when you start out and you're in a band, I think you want to get a few songs out and then you're like, let's gig as much as possible. And that only takes you so long. I mean, it's fun, but it only takes you so far. And you definitely don't want to miss out on the creative aspect of actually creating and making your songs, and not just creating the music, but building a brand around it, getting the right artwork, getting the right emotional and thematic things tied into it. So, and I think we had just came back from a show in New York over the summer, and we were like, that was so awesome. We got to do something big. Let's and we've done the EP. I mean, we've done singles. It just seems like the logical next step. And I know in today's world, a lot of people like don't put out an album, just do singles. Um, but the kind of direction we've been taking is a waterfall release, which is where you release one single and then a second single, and it builds the project along the way. So basically, all year long, you're still releasing music and you're constantly talking about this project and this album that's going to come up. Um, but all the while, you know, the first one was just a single, Graveyard Girl. The second one was basically a single and a B side. The next one will be 3 songs, um, Divine Sensations. And then after that, the fourth and final single will basically be a short EP in of itself before the 10-song release. Um, so just trying to try something different in terms of the way music is released, um, to experiment with getting the word out there, but also just trying to accomplish and achieve a bigger project than we've done, and which I honestly think we were ready for. Like we came to this point, so let's do it.
For me, I think I learned something new every day about recording and mixing. And so the challenge for me is as time goes on, as we get more songs and we start recording more and we get more content for the album, it's hard for me to look back on the previous recordings and the previous mixes and be 100% like it's just difficult because you get better every day and then you have to always have that trail like just you're just lugging around this just man, I could have done better, I could have done better, I could have done better. But in one way it shows, that it's getting better. But that's the thing for me. It's like every day I learn something new and it's like, oh, if only I knew that before, or if only I did that for the last song. But I'm still very happy with all the work that we've all done. Um, but that's just like that's the one challenge for me. And I'm a very picky person when it comes to mixing and when it comes to recording. So some of the things that I'm go crazy about, like some people have no idea what I'm even talking about.
The producer's curse.
Yeah. Yeah, like at least you're like releasing stuff as you're going. Because I know, like I've talked to some friends and like they had like maybe one or two singles out, but they had the whole EP or album done prior, all the singles being released. So like they kind of did the same thing where they recorded in house, so that like they got themselves very nitpicky of like, okay, here's this song, but version like 20.02 because we changed like this one hi hat in like this one spot because it sounded better, and then like they would go and like listen to it again and think it would be done and final, and be like, ah, actually this other thing needs to change. So you have like 30 versions of the same song, whereas like at some point you just kind of needed to let it go and let it do its thing and be in the world and just like let it grow itself.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, which like at the time of this recording, like you mentioned, two singles are out so far. We have Graveyard Girl and, forgive me if I butchered the name on this one, uh Botellión.
You got it.
Hell yeah, got it. Like how does it feel to have like these songs out so far, as like a glimpse as to what's to come?
Um, I've been having fun with it. I mean, it's really cool to see the continuity of a project build, and we haven't really seen that with the other ones. Like with the very first one, there was one single, um, but this has been a more thought out project. So Simon had his first song, Graveyard Girl, which is a single. That came out right around Halloween, and we threw a Halloween party, and that was like the kickoff of the journey that we were going on. And it was an awesome party. The song did really well. We filmed a music video, which Jackson, Simon's brother, just told me should have the footage for that to me in no time. So we'll have that ready soon. Um, but then moving on to Botellión, which is another song that we've been playing forever and have done different iterations of. Um, and I think a lot of these songs kind of have this, at least in my perspective, this emotion of romantic passion, even if it's not necessarily for a person, which a lot of them are. But I feel like that passion really cuts out in a lot of these songs. And while I may not have initially paired Graveyard Girl and Botellión together, I think they fit really well now. And I think a lot of the songs that we're producing have a similar energy. So it's cool to see them, ideas that maybe weren't originally paired together, kind of coalesce.
Yeah. No, I mean they've obviously, since I've been listening to everything, those two mainly back to back, getting prepared for this. Uh, to me, they flow very well, and I'm really stoked to see how the next single kind of factors into this. I know by the time this episode's out, the third single's already going to be out, but you've been gracious enough to send me two basically rough cut versions ahead of time, so I could kind of listen to two different versions of how ideas that you guys have going on. So I'm really stoked to see what that final version is going to look like and how it's going to factor in. And that song that I'm talking about is the Divine Sensation that you kind of mentioned, and how that kind of factors in and kind of builds off this whole story that we're kind of getting introduced to with this LP.
Yeah. Yeah, well, appreciate you saying that. You think that you're enjoying the tunes and you're looking forward to it. Hopefully we can deliver.
I'm sure you will. I'm not too worried. Especially with the fourth single coming out. You said in April, and then we'll right around the corner from that we'll see the full release. But if people are starting to like listen to this, at least the first two singles, and getting into the third one by the time this is out, like I guess what are we to expect for the back half of what's about to be unreleased?
Well, I feel like that theme of passion and emotion and energy kind of permeates throughout. Divine Sensations is a little bit more upbeat and has a little bit more of a major happy feel to it. Um, but then some of the songs get kind of dark and some crunchier guitars. Um, but I still feel like they're all connected through this bluesy slash funky groove. Um, but the second half of the album, it's kind of like you start out very excited and optimistic at the beginning, and then you sort of like come to grip with reality and get a little bit more jaded towards the end. That's kind of how I've been seeing it. I don't know, Jahan or Simon, if you've
I
uh,
see it. I see it the same way.
yeah.
I don't know if it was intentional, but like, yeah, we just had all these happy, groovy songs, and then we were like, we need to write a few more for the album, and they came out so emo, like, but it's not bad. I kind of like it. It's more, I would emo is the wrong word. Like, it's just more intense and maybe a little louder, but it's still Toad nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny, like, even the happier, upbeat songs that I write, I have inspiration that stems from like Radiohead and some kind of masochistic lyricists. So there's always like a little bit of sad boy lyrics in my happy songs, at least in the way they feel. And so I feel like there's definitely some of that in a few of these songs. But once you pair that with the like, I'm gonna write a heavy guitar riff or just be loud, it kind of is even more apparent.
Well, Kai, like you said, well, we each kind of we don't play the same things, and we both bring like our own thing to the table. I don't know if it's clear to other people, but it might be, but it's like it's always pretty clear to me which songs that I wrote when they're paired against the songs that you wrote, because when I listen to the songs that you write, it's always like it brings a positive energy. And then I listen to the songs that I write and I'm like, I wasn't even mad when I wrote this song. Why does it sound like this? I was perfectly happy. Why did it
That's
come
your
out like this?
that's your subconscious, John. It's trying to tell you something.
I'm just smiling all the way through, just writing just horror.
Pure horror.
Yeah, but with a big smile.
Uh, One thing I did notice in Botellión, because I'm a real sucker for like sound clips and like things that don't normally show up in songs. Obviously a lot of emo songs will get sound clips of whether it's King of the Hill or BoJack Horseman or whatever. But just even hearing like any random voice notes in there, like I always try and keep an eye out for those. And obviously in Botellión, there's one towards the end, in like the last little break that, correct me if I'm wrong on it, but someone's saying, "Am I the only one getting food?" And then they're kind of like distraught because like I guess no one else wants to get food at that time at that point in time. Like what is that like? What is going on, and why did you decide to keep it inside the song?
Is that
So
from when I bought ramen
go
for
ahead.
John?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So we were in the studio recording the drums, and and obviously I bring all the multi-tracks home and to my studio where I am right now, and I begin to mix. And I'm in the process of mixing the drums for that song, and we're adding all the extra parts on top of it, and I get to the end, and it's a pretty long tail because usually I have everybody wait like an uncomfortable amount of time after we finish the last note, just in case, so we have a very clean decay at the end of the song. And so there was a big chunk of time at the end of those drum tracks where there was just nothing. And right at the end, probably like 20, 25 seconds of nothing. And then right at the end, John, our drummer, gets up and yeah, I at this point I can't remember what he said. What he's like, "Am I the one getting food? Oh, that's very nice of you." And I just loved it because that's just, I can hear that, and I know immediately, oh, that's John. And um, I I love stuff like that. Like you listen to old like Zeppelin records, and they'll have something like in the beginning where it'll be like Robert Plant will say something like, "Okay, let's get this started," and then it'll kick in, to the drums or something. And there's stuff like that happens in a lot of classic records that you don't really hear anymore. And I love stuff like that. I love little quirks. I love mistakes in parts. Like I love listening to mistakes. Um, and so I just thought, screw it, I'm gonna cut the extra part out and I'm just gonna shove that right at the tail end of the song and I'm gonna keep that in there. And that's one of the advantages of being able to record and mix all the music is if I want it in there, I'm gonna put it in there.
I um I remember why he said that. So we were our drummer John, for some reference, is like the ultimate drum machine. Never misses a beat. Like you just tell him to do this, and you could be like, "Give me a shaka," and he'll do exactly what you're thinking. You don't even have to explain any further. Um, but he does have his set routine and like his way. So like we were recording in the studio all like a ton of drum
Yeah,
tracks, like
it was a
just
grind.
getting as much possible as we could. And he starts like kind of getting real antsy and being like, I have to go, I have to eat dinner, I need to leave, like this is this. So I'm like, I'm getting, so I leave and I get food for John, but it was just him because we just needed John to record in the studio and stay. And I've never seen someone happier than when I brought that bowl of soup.
Yeah, because then I've like you thought, Michael. Like I've listened to it in so many different ways. Where because I remember him saying it, but I don't remember him being like upset. It was like a question, and then when he says, "I think we're talking to him through the speak back feature, so that's not picked up in the track." But we go, "Yeah, man, we got your food." Simon went and grabbed it, and he was like, "Really?" And I've listened to that in the recording and been like, he's like mad. He's like, "Really?" But no, I know in reality he's like, "Wow, you guys, that was awesome. Thank you." And then he ends it with that, "Thank you so much. That was great." But yeah, shout out to John, incredible talent, human metronome, like Simon said.
Yeah, I feel for him. I made him track that. I remember I made him track that song so many times just because I every time he did it better. And every time he did it, I would tell him, do do this, and okay, now do that. Okay, now try it this way, and make this one part. And he gets, it's not that he's a great drummer because he can do all the crazy stuff, but he knows he serves the song, so he gives a perfect foundation, even though he can do all this crazy stuff. And sometimes, you know, I want some of that crazy stuff, and I just kept making him do it over and over and over again, just like kind of, I mean, I would see documentaries on like Muscle Shoals, and the producers there would make Etta James record like 100 times because she would get angrier and angrier every time she would sing a take, and the take would come out better and better. And I have that same mentality of you just have to like squeeze the person for all they have, because you're gonna get something really good at the end. And so usually though at something at a point like that, he just, you can hear it in his playing. He's like giving me a middle finger because he's playing all these crazy licks, and he's just like, okay, he'll shut up after this one.
Jahan and John is the real life Whiplash in Toad. They're gonna make a movie about it.
That's right. Yeah. So at the end, he was like very happy that, oh, they made up for it. They got me food.
Now, Jahan, I like how you said earlier. You add those things, those little things in because you like it, and it's kind of the way you do it. Are we going to see any more sound bites or anything in the rest of this album?
Oh, it 100%. I'm gonna sneak in a bunch of like overdubs of myself going like "Scooby," like right in the background. We're gonna add like blender noises and stuff. It's gonna be great. But
Well,
um, I gotta go back and I gotta listen to the rest of the tracks. What we do, which is nice, is when we record, I don't always stop the recording, right at the end, and I never have people start right at the beginning of when I hit record. So there's got to be something in there because
yeah.
I let the quote unquote tape run, or Pro Tools or whatever we're using. I let it run for a little while because I'm not afraid of. I've got plenty of storage on my computer, so I'm not afraid of putting in some big files and seeing what I can find in there, some little snippets.
And we're just constantly saying funny shit. So it's
Right.
got to
We're
be
we're
in
just
there
we're just
somewhere.
hilarious people. That's what it is. It's the problem. It's a
Yeah.
curse.
I love that. I'm stoked to see what other things people find in this record when it fully drops. Because I like doing the same thing where obviously I'm not recording bands in the same sense, but when we do this, like earlier you asked like how we started. That's just the starting B-roll that I'll use before like we actually start, and some shit ends up really funny in there that gets kept. Some stuff is really funny that I unfortunately can't keep. But
Yeah.
we'll never know how those go. Well,
We got
I
to keep
will,
it
but
PG.
yeah.
We've
But
definitely had
it's always
some
cool.
we've definitely had some gold that was not usable.
And I know we've talked about the record and like how it's gonna release. I think you said in the original email like probably like June, July ish. Do you have a title yet for this album?
Yeah, so the kind of working title, but I'm pretty sure this is what we want it to be, is Toad. Toad by Toad. Debut album, like this is us. This is
Oh, yeah.
us. And I mean we've kind of done that with like Hot Tub Toad Machine kind of hints at us all the way home, little piggies. So there's some little foot references there, but it's just gonna be Toad. But yes, and the date we do have locked in, the release show, will be June 21st, Saturday, June 21st at the Loving Touch in Ferndale, which is just right outside of Detroit. So that is the target date for the release of the whole project.
Hell yeah. I think Simon saw my face. I didn't get the all the way home reference until you just explained it.
Yeah.
And so that's a good one. But I love that you guys are doing the self-titled for the
Yeah.
LP. I always think those are like the right moments to use self-titled. I know some bands have done it on their first EP and stuff, but for me, I've never done anything self-titled. But I would feel like you need to have like a couple releases under your belt to kind of flush out what the band really is and put that staple of like this is who we are at this point. Like we feel confident enough that we're Toad. Here's the album Toad by Toad.
Yeah.
This is us.
I
Yeah,
agree. I
don't feel
agree.
don't feel bad about that reference, Michael. I didn't even get that until right now either.
Man, Simon is cooking up such good art that it's going under other band members' noses for years at a time.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully everyone's ready for Toad by Toad when it drops in June. Everyone be ready. I know I'm stoked to kind of see what like I've said, the back half of this the LP is gonna sound like. I know we've jumped around a bit between like the record and Toad the band. But is there anything that I'm missing between the two that you want the people to know about?
Um, well, I feel like I'll just go ahead and also mention our keyboardist Michael Nager. So Toad is a 5 piece currently. It's made up of us three, and then Michael, who is like John, a freakishly gifted keyboard player. If he doesn't have perfect pitch, it's close to it. And he's always like, "Yo, let me add in the 13th over the 9th of this 10th chord, and I'll make it real tasty." So he's a really a good weapon to have in the group as well. But he's not here today. But just thought I'd shout him out and his contributions. And then Jonathan Maltz as well, the drummer, who we've touched on a little bit also. Couldn't do these songs without those two. So yeah, just wanted to put their names out there.
And I love that you did that because I normally what I do at the beginning of these is obviously the members that are here, I ask for you guys' names, what you do, and I on normal occasions, and today I forgot, forgive me, I usually ask who else is in the band, what do they do, and then I usually say this is where we pour one out in their honor for Michael and John for not being able to be here with us. By pour one out, I don't mean
crazy.
I mean have a drink in their honor because we don't waste alcohol around here. But this is for John and Michael for in their honor for not being here tonight.
Yeah.
Cheers.
We're gonna shameless plug one more time. You never miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
We got to run this whole podcast back now.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, one thing else that I will shamelessly plug, is that Jahan is our producer, but it's also all produced in his studio, the B Room Studio, which he does all sorts of great live sessions for not just Toad, but other local bands in Detroit. So also could not do it without his input, and the B Room is awesome. So if you ever know of anybody coming through and needs a spot to record in Detroit, we got you there.
Yeah, you can look me up on all social media platforms, the broom.studio, or no, I messed that up. I got it close enough. Some of them have dots, some of them don't, but yeah, you'll find it. I got a website.
Yeah, it's out there.
It's out there. We're on Google Maps.
Dude, I remember, I know this is going off tangent before we get into the full story section, but the house I used to live in when I first moved to Minneapolis was like a decently known like punk house. Like they used to throw like house shows there all the time, and like everyone that lived there at one point was like just musicians, but it didn't matter what band they were in. Like it was just a revolving door of people that lived there at one point. And we all finally moved out in May of like 23, so like finally like the ties to us and like the original band are all gone. But that house was on Google Maps as like a venue. So like people would still like hit up people that like they knew or thought lived in the house asking like, hey, can we play here or whatever. Well, we all left, and I'm pretty sure I could look on Google right now and that house is still going to be listed as a venue, and we don't know how to take it off, and none of us tried to take it off, and like it got remodeled and like new people moved in, so like hopefully no one goes to their door like asking any questions.
Shows up just hammered like, where's the show? Any good Yelp reviews?
I'm sure there's some. I never looked into it. I should look into to see if there are any Yelp reviews though.
Yeah.
That's
Classic.
like Walter White's like Breaking Bad house.
Yeah.
And everyone just keeps going to piss that lady off who lives there now.
I will say like,
and they bring a pizza and they throw the pizza.
Yeah, we went there once and like she was sitting in her driveway. Like,
really?
She always does. Like she usually sits in her garage and like that's every time I've read something on it, she's always just
wards
sitting
off
there.
Visitors.
Yeah, but she was cool with us because we were like, can we just stand in the road and like take a picture real quick and like leave? And she's like, yeah, that's fine. It's like she put up gates all around that house because people were throwing pizzas on the roof.
Yeah,
Wow.
Did you see the Danny Duncan video where he goes? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Danny Duncan, but he went there and got up close and personal. She's actually a very nice lady. I didn't know this until I watched that video, and then I saw the clips of like, I mean, it back and forth, just like screaming matches between civilians and this lady who just lives at a
Wow.
house who happened
Yeah.
to be, the set of a show. I'm sorry. I thought it was
I
funny.
mean, you gotta be you got. I think she wants it. Like she's got to know. She's got to
She's
know
asking.
what she's
She's
Well,
getting
I
asking
into.
mean,
for it.
instead of just being, she could figure out a way to make money off of it, and you know what I mean?
I
Like
gotta find a way to make
somehow.
money off of this. It's just too good.
You know what I mean? Like you might as well. People are throwing pizzas on your
Right.
on your house. Figure out a way to make money off of it.
Yeah, he's got to. She's got to.
Yeah. I like that we're starting to get loose because this works out perfectly. Because obviously, we're gonna start to transition here. But before we fully get there, this is obviously beers with bands. You don't have to be drinking all these episodes out because I would definitely do that for you. But I know the three of you have some beverages in front of you on this fine Monday. What are y'all drinking tonight?
I've got I wish I had the bottle version, but I ran out of bottle. I don't like the can. I think the cans taste worse, but it's all I had, and it fits well in the koozie. But I love Blue Moon.
Mm. Yep.
I'm not sponsored, but I'll take one.
Come on, Blue Moon. Come on. I got a Oberon Eclipse. So the winter version of Bell's famous summertime beer, Oberon. Just
Oh, you should have pulled out the Toad Baron.
oh well, I don't have any more Toad Barons. We did have a former member of our band brewed a beer and put a Toad logo over the Oberon logo on the bottles, and it was actually pretty good. But
Hell yeah.
yeah. So just sipping on that, a good wintertime wheat ale, kind of similar to Blue Moon if you're unfamiliar.
It's a local beer. It's pretty neat.
It's local? I
Yeah.
didn't even know that.
Kalamazoo.
I'm
Oh, okay.
drinking just a classic Bud Light, but it's special because it has the Lions on it. Yeah.
Whoa.
And
Shout out.
we do not talk about the end of this season.
Nah.
No.
It's fair. I'm in Minneapolis. I know how you feel.
Yeah. What are you sipping on?
I got some good old Modelo's for this episode.
I love
Can't go
Modelo.
wrong.
If I had a Modelo, I'd be drinking it. Trust and believe that, partner.
Yeah, I mean, it's always the go-to. It's either that or it was gonna be hams, and I figure I'll say
Yeah.
the hams for the next episode.
Modelo.
Born in the
Modelo for
land
sure.
of born in the land of the sky blue waters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Where I work, I get a free unlimited drinks, and so I got to remember to like pace myself. But it's like, how can you say no to like as many Modelos as you want?
Right? That's a deadly
You know
game.
what I mean?
I'm actually gonna grab another beer. I'll be
Yeah,
right
I
back.
actually think
Okay.
I might do the same. I'll be real quick.
All right.
Don't worry, I'm not going not going anywhere. Staying right here.
All right.
Oh, you said you've been doing this is the 200 and something.
Yeah,
Can't remember
you
the
guys will
specific
be
number.
like
Over
episode,
200 episodes.
Yeah, you guys will be like 230 something.
That's amazing. Every Friday you've been doing one with a different band, or have you had like reoccurring?
I've had a
reoccurring
few
bands?
guests come back. Like there's, I think my friends at TV Cop have been on the show probably 3 different times, but for the most part, like everyone's like either 2 or under, and there's very little that have hit
Okay.
like 2. So I'd say in total it's probably 225 at least different bands total.
Wow, that's
Which,
amazing.
yeah,
That's
it
amazing.
feels wild.
That's
Kai, we
amazing.
returned in sync. In sync, Kai and I sat down.
Oh, that's incredible. Switch
I was
to a
hearing your-
bottle.
You're talking about your 230. How many of it? 236? 237?
This will be like 231, I think.
Oh, okay.
So
That
just
is
starting to get into the 230s, but
It's very
yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
it's crazy.
it's dude, it's wild to me that this is like the longest thing I've stuck with besides like my day job. It's wild.
And
That
so,
means you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Real.
Yeah, I've always told
Real
myself
out
that
here.
like the day that starts to feel like a job is the day that it's gonna end. And thankfully I haven't gotten to that point yet. So now I'm just like, fuck, what? At what point do I like just ride off into the sunset and just like end it on its high note? But we'll see when that actually happens.
yeah.
You gotta like blow up on at the end of a podcast or something. Just like explode,
Yeah.
spontaneously combust.
A real G.G. Allen ending. Die on stage.
Yeah.
He didn't actually
So
die on
you
stage. He
said
died of
you were in
overdose.
you were in a punk band. So are most of the bands that you have on the show like punk bands and hardcore bands, or
Yeah,
does
everyone's
that
pretty much like pop punk or
not play a role?
emo. Uh,
Okay.
it's a lot of what it is too. I've been wanting to branch it out a little bit more because I feel like I've really been in like this one niche of just like all the same stuff, and it's always cool to like to get people that people wouldn't expect to be for me to sit down with. So like I've sat down with lately. Their episodes aren't out yet, but a couple like a hardcore band from St. Louis has recently come on. So I'm trying to get a little bit more into hardcore because secretly everyone wants to be a hardcore kid, including myself. And then obviously you guys are really shaking up the algorithm with being this
Yeah.
like funk blues mix, which I love that it's intertwined now with this, and like really just trying to branch it out a little bit more and more as I go.
Yeah. Curious, how do you book a lot of your interviews? Do people just reach out to you? Do you, because like 230 is like, you're pumping those out. People,
I
you
can't
got to
even
know
count
some,
that high.
yeah.
So a lot of it is at least in the early days was, especially when I wasn't so busy at work, I would really try and stay on top of like the new release like radars on like Fridays and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Find a song that I really liked and then just like go to that profile, listen to something else, and then like send a bunch of emails. And then I got to a point where like now it's like partially me sending out emails and then partially bands hitting me up because like their friends have been on, or like
Yeah.
they know someone else that's been on through like someone else, or like a chain
A lot of
of a
word of
friend of a
mouth.
friend or whatever. Yeah, word of mouth. So it's helped get it to where it is now, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to
That's
do it.
fantastic.
If you do want another great hardcore band from the Detroit area called Times New Roman, they're good buddies of ours. And then also Simon plays in a second band that is grunge. I don't know if that's it's grungy. I don't know how
Yeah,
else you would describe it, but
I would call it grunge for sure.
so if you ever need others, you know.
So, since we're talking about these other bands from the Detroit area, like what's what's the scene like in Detroit? Because obviously, when most people think of Detroit, I feel like we think of like Big Sean, the rap scene. Obviously, there's like a decent amount of like emo bands in the Detroit metro area. But like, what's it like? I haven't actually asked any of the bands that have been on from like the Detroit area. Like, what's it like for you guys? Like, what's the scene looking like for you? How do you feel like it is? Like, what phase is it in right now?
There's there's a huge garage rock
That's
scene
what I was gonna say.
here as well. Like a
Yeah.
huge garage rock. Like, it's very rooted in like classic mid late 60s, just high
It,
energy, very foundational, just garage rock. And
are you
I
familiar?
love it.
Are you familiar with the Detroit Cobras?
No.
Okay, so they kind of started the scene that like the White Stripes were in as well before they moved to Nashville,
Hmm.
which was early 2000s garage rock. And it seems like a lot of the musicians that at least we play with around Detroit, Ann Arbor, they all emulate the White Stripes, Detroit Cobras. but they also mix in a lot of like what Jahan was saying, like the Beatles type harmonies and stuff like that. It's a little softer or more melodical, I guess, but still
Yeah.
very garagey sounding. They've got the rough guitar sound. It's nice.
Yeah. The garage rock
Yeah.
scene is definitely big. I mean, there is a subculture of Big Sean Eminem hip hop as well. I have a buddy named Isaac Castor who's a rapper, and I go to a lot of his shows and performances. So there are definitely pockets of different um, music cultures within Detroit. I think when you get closer to like Ann Arbor, there is a scene of like jam psychedelic groups like that are kind of in the same vein as like Fish. Um, Chirp is a good example of that, but they're probably a little bit funkier than Fish. They got some like Prince tossed into them. So that is, I feel like we are kind of situated in between that like funk jam side and the garage rock. I wouldn't really call us fully one of either, but I do think we take a lot of themes and motifs from both genres. Um, we do a lot of improvisation, so that kind of leads to the jam element. But again, we're not afraid to like have a crunchy, distorted guitar with some harsh vocals, you know, do that type of thing as well. But definitely a jam scene. Groups coming to mind are like the Pajamas, Chirp, Strictly Fine, which is like a jazz jam group that I really like. Um, yeah,
It's
Yeah, we also have like a huge hardcore scene as well. But yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I I was just gonna say it seems like the people that live in Detroit typically are primed to seeing DJs and vinyl. There's a lot of vinyl being
Yeah.
spun.
Techno City,
So
baby.
Yeah,
yeah,
a
I mean
lot of techno
techno was started. There's the whole what's the festival called? Shoot.
movement.
Movement.
Yeah, movement is huge. So it's a little tough as like a rock and roll band trying to go to clubs. Like we played this place called Elephant Room, which was surprisingly a good show, but usually we were the first ever live music there because or like live band there because they always have DJs before. And the crowd did seem a little thrown off at first, like but as long as you play the blues, I feel like you can get anyone
Yeah.
into set.
Just
Yeah.
get their foot tapping and they're along for the
Yeah.
ride from there on out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, at least it's like something like you guys being like the first band in there. Like imagine like just like either a hardcore band comes up the first time or like a really emo band or something that's like they're is so far away from like what they're so used to probably being spun. Where at least you
Hmm.
guys have like that like funkiness where like you get them hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you're kind of like on the money. Sorry, John.
Sorry.
In my grunge band, playing same places that I've played with Toad, we are way less liked by typical Detroit clientele. It's definitely easier for us to play at like colleges or places where there are a lot more younger people when it's a hardcore stuff.
Yeah, there's like very, very dedicated audiences in Detroit. And so if you find yourself in that niche pocket of garage rock, you're gonna attract all the garage rock goers and they're gonna know all the local bands and it's a very well tight community. And in the same token, I work at a lot of venues running live sound, so I have the pleasure of kind of seeing all these different crowds come by and I see a lot of reoccurring faces. And then you get to the other side and you get like, the techno community or the people who just go to like these the clubs and uh and that's a whole like very tight knit pocket of its own and there's not a whole lot of communication between the two. Like me and Simon, remember when we went to Spotlight and there's DJs playing and then out of nowhere everybody in the venue just like initiated a perfectly in sync dance with like
Yeah.
very complicated moves, and they were going like 3 steps forward, then doing a half spin, and all this crazy
Was it
stuff.
the
We were
Dude,
just
and then
hustle?
that
like,
guy trained us. The guy trained us.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the
I
hustle.
mean,
It
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 was
was
is.
the
sick.
hustle.
It
Oh
was
my
not that
god!
complicated.
I'd never done that before. I'd never done that before, and now
I was
every
like, it
time I
is
work that
Detroit.
venue, yeah, when I work that venue, I always see that dance be done. And when one
Dude,
person
it's so
starts
fun.
it, you have like 100 people now doing it in perfect sync, like they're sync perfectly with each other. And you would just have, they're right next door to each other, kind of like the garage people and the techno people and the hardcore people and the rap community. Like they're all in practically on the same block, but it's like you would have no idea of any of that stuff because it's like they're so invested into that community, and it's so well knit together.
It definitely is a little siloed, but I think there is a wealth of any type of music you want to get into in Detroit, and the startup is not difficult if you want to find yourself in one of those communities. Just go out, introduce yourself, and you can get your foot in the door and start playing in no time. So Detroit's a
Yeah,
great spot for
we have a
music.
great open mic community. We have
Yeah,
plenty of
good
open
open
mics, and
mics.
it's a fantastic open mic scene. Like that's how I met Kai, was through an open mic. That's how I met a lot of the local bands, through open mic. I mean, and we have very dedicated open mic hosts that will go to great lengths to make sure that these places stay open and that these communities are kept alive.
That's
Oh yeah.
awesome. Uh,
Shout out Toad. I thought I could sneak that in there. You caught me.
Have you seen Toad? Have you heard of Toad?
Have you heard of Toad? Kind of like in those movies where they might like flash for like 0.1 second, like a Coca-Cola bottle,
oh,
and you have no idea.
Little subliminal messaging.
yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome that everyone, at least like growing up, obviously Detroit's always been like this really good spot for rap, and then obviously Motown. But it's nice to see, like, because like I said, I've never asked that question to anyone that's been on lately as to like what it's actually like nowadays for people our age that aren't in to specifically that scene. So it's kind of nice to see and that things are going on. I know like here in Minneapolis, it's a really good music scene. I see a lot of like punk, pop punk, some emo, but like I don't see that DJ scene or like the like garage rock scene, which obviously I might not be in the right crowds to see it, but I just had like there's Minneapolis is also really crazy where, and I'm sure it's kind of the same as like Detroit where there's shit going on 2 times over like every night,
Yeah.
at like almost every venue. So it's there's so much stuff that it's hard to keep track of too.
Mm-hmm. Any remnants of the legacy that Prince left behind, or any type of funk in that sense?
Not that I've encountered. I'm sure that there's got to be something.
Yeah.
I know like yearly around I think his birthday they usually do like a big festival at
Mm-hmm.
First Ave, which is like the venue that he kind of helped I think solidify here in
Yeah.
the Twin Cities. And if anyone's from Minneapolis and I get that wrong, forgive me. I didn't grow up here, but like it's like the one spot that I guess is always synonymous with him. So like they always do something big there, but I've never seen like local bands in the same style
Yeah.
of Prince.
It's kind of a
No,
hard
like
thing to
big
replicate.
tall purple guys, walking the streets of Minneapolis.
Wacky wavy inflatable arm flailing tube men that are purple. Just
Yeah,
going
yeah,
at
yeah.
it. Prince was
With
like
the
5'6". What are you
gorgeous
talking
voices.
I know.
Was he really?
about? Yeah.
You know what it
he
is?
wasn't-
He had
wasn't tall,
an
man.
energy.
He did have an
He
energy.
had a-
He had
well,
an aura.
He had a very tall aura, 10,000 aura.
I remember. I think it was sometime in the last couple of years. The news was doing this story on like a teacher strike back in like the 1970s, and they found film footage from like
Yes.
from one of the local news stations that they interviewed Prince as like a 10-year-old kid about
Yeah.
like the school strike and stuff like that, and about like how he's not in school and stuff, and so they like found it in the archives randomly, and were like,
Wow.
Yeah, that's
"Here's
great. I've seen
this."
that.
Yeah.
I just want to go play guitar.
That's your Prince guy?
Yeah, it's my Prince. Maybe I need to be a little quieter.
Oh yeah, you were Prince
Yeah,
for Halloween.
for our Halloween Graveyard Girl release, I was Prince. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like most people got it, but some people were like, "What the hell are you?" Like, come on.
Who's this big purple guy?
Pirate, yeah.
Pirates don't wear purple.
They do now.
Well, John, like you said, we're getting silly, we're getting loose. I feel like this a perfect time to kind of go into the later half of these episodes, which are always kind of like my favorite part of these episodes, where we kind of talk about some fun stories from you guys' time of music, whether they're shows, tours, time recording. As I normally say, they can be anything horrendous to tremendous, or any adjective in between. The way I like to think about it is, think about the stories you always reminisce about with your friends. Those are usually the best stories that everyone loves to hear. Yeah. So I don't know where you want to start, or if you want me to.
Let's start with
prompt you.
horrendous.
Hell yes.
We put on, so there's a
Oh
we kind of
shit!
talked a little about we did.
I forgot.
You know what? It's funny that you say shit. So
Oh.
we there is a local venue that is very DIY. I know the owner personally. She's a fantastic, amazing person. And you can essentially rent out the space and just do whatever you want with it, right? And so usually we'll throw a Halloween party every year, and we do it Simon's at Simon's place, and it's always a great time. But last year it just didn't work out that way. So I thought, all right, well, why don't we just rent out? It's called Spread Art. It's in Detroit, Spread Art. People should look it up. It's fantastic. Why don't we just rent out Spread Art and just throw our own party? You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want there. So they have a stage and a sound system and everything and all that. And I know the owner, so I'll just I'll just text her, and we'll see what happens. And it all worked out. And we really did everything ourselves. We went in there hours and hours before, and we with everybody. We set up all these amazing decorations. I was going to run the sound. So we were really just going to take care of the whole thing ourselves. And everything was going really, really well. I mean, I was amazed with, before the show was going to start, like how just amazing everything looked. And people started showing up, and a lot of people started showing up.
And
And
a lot of like a
I was
lot of people.
surprised about, yeah, I was surprised about that. But I was like, wow, this is going to be a great show. And about, I don't know, like 10 minutes in or something, Simon's brother, who was there, comes up to me, and I'm running around this. I'm sweating because I'm getting the stage set up. I'm getting the sound system set up. I'm going back and forth. I'm checking in on so many different things, and we're all running around. We got to take care of everything. And 10 minutes in, Simon's brother stops me and goes, "Hey, the toilet won't flush." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything. Like, I just pissed, I swear." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, there was nothing really in there. And then I was like, "Okay, all right, well, we'll put a sign, nobody used this bathroom." And then, not even 5 minutes later, uh somebody comes up to me and goes, "Hey, the other toilet not flushing." And then I'm starting to just, it's like, really, like, I can't deal with this right now. And so, we
And
made a
then we
rule.
accidentally locked the door to one of the bathrooms from the
Well,
outside.
yeah, so somehow we locked the door as well. So then I contacted the owner going, "Hey, these toilets aren't flushing. I promise we didn't do anything. And, we're not going to keep flushing them. So we're not going to, they're not going to flush. So we're not going to force them or try or anything. We're just going to leave them, but they're not flushing, whatever." And so she goes, "Okay, I'm on my way." And then while she's on her way, that's when the doors got locked and we can't even get in. And so now I'm freaking out. And she's like, I'll be there any minute. And so I grab a screwdriver and I start taking the doorknob off of the door and I'm just dismembering this door. And then she comes right as I'm doing that, as I'm, disassembling her doors. And she starts yelling at me like, John, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she's like, move. And then I go in and then she's like, somebody, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, she's like, John, get this fucking doorknob back on the door. And so I'm panicking. I'm just screwing this doorknob back in, even knowing that we can't get in there or whatever. And she gets in. They kind of look at it and they go, yeah, there's nothing in there. I don't know what the heck is going on. The whole while I'm thinking, oh, she's pissed off at me. I'm gonna have to see her again. And then, but we just kind of put some signs that are like, all right, don't use these bathrooms. And then
But
she
now
was
we
like,
got
okay.
we got at least 100 people in this DIY space.
Oh, we had like 200. We had like
no,
200 people, and nobody's using the
bathrooms.
bathroom.
Ugh.
Yeah, nobody's allowed to use the bathroom, right? And so womp womp. Anyways, we're playing the whole show, and I never noticed this myself. I didn't notice until like almost the end of the night, while almost everyone was gone. But maybe somebody else can attest to this. But at some point during the night, Detroit has some quirky pipes that run throughout the city. We're not known for our pipes, sewage systems. Yeah. So what happened was there was a clog somewhere down the road, and it clogged, and and it affected the venue and everything in its path on that whole road, really. And at some point, shit started to rise up from the floor, and there was a corner of the venue that was like a good patty of just fecal matter, like a thick one. You know what I mean? It was nice.
It was like seeping out of the wall.
And
Yeah.
seeping out of the walls.
No, it was
walls
crazy.
Will ooze green slime.
And everyone was
Yeah,
like,
and
"Do
there
you
was
smell
shit.
that?" And I just had to be like, "Oh, it's
No,
fine.
no.
It's fine."
Yeah.
But people stuck
And
it
I'm
out
running
to their
around
credit.
so much.
The whole time.
They stuck it out.
It's difficult for me to even stop and think and let alone smell something. So I never noticed it. But people would tell me afterwards, like we'd be in the crowd and we'd just hear somebody next to us go like, does it smell like shit in here? And I just thought it was the funniest thing that we essentially forced and trapped 200 people in a box to smell shit for like 2-3 hours, and there was
But
nothing they could do about
They
it.
stuck it out and paid.
They stuck it out.
Paid.
And
That's
people
Detroit.
are like,
They
they're
paid
like,
money.
They're like, no worries, man. No bathroom. I'll go outside. No worries. In the
They
cold.
paid money
But
to
also-
smell
People in
shit.
Detroit are so nice.
Spread art is also like, it is an awesome venue. Not their fault. Shit happens.
Not their fault at all. I love spread
yeah.
art. It's
And
Detroit's
it's also-
pipes.
It's like an alt art incubator space. Like they have studio upstairs for artists to do residencies. So great location, great project. But we also had hired a bunch of vendors to sell stuff, and we had put them in the space, which was the worst. So my friend Elizabeth, who is a ceramicist, I think she actually was the first one to be like, "Yo, the toilets are not right." And
yeah, I forgot about that.
She started lighting
They were
incense.
all literally right there.
She was right in she lit incense, and I don't really know if it made it better or if it just made an amalgamation of nastiness, but she stuck it out the whole night too. And from what she's told me, she made a good chunk of change that night. So
yeah,
it all worked out. It all worked out.
No, I know. And it wasn't, if you closed your eyes, it was kind of like lemonade. But the way the venue works is you can either rent the space out. You can either rent the space out for $20 an hour, or you can have the space essentially free and set it up as a fundraiser. So whatever you make at the door, you just give back to the venue, and you don't have to worry about really like paying an hourly or whatever. And we just chose the fundraiser option. I think like I don't know, maybe one, I was like I didn't expect that many people to
We
show
didn't
up. So
think
I was
anyone
like,
was. We thought we would lose money if we chose the other
yeah,
option.
exactly. I was like, $20 an hour. We're gonna be here for like the whole day, and we're gonna lose money. So we'll just do a fundraiser. We ended up making tons of money, which was great. And it paid for the dam like the we didn't cause any damages, but it paid for the contractors to come in and fix the whole thing. So, we essentially threw a let's fix spread art party.
Let's fuck it up first, but then let's fix it after.
Yeah.
Do you remember that
And
show, Destroy, Build, Destroy?
Yeah,
That's,
exactly. I love that show.
Andrew WK, is that his name?
And I
University of
saw
Michigan grad, by the way.
I saw the owner recently, and we always bring that night up because she said that's never happened ever, and she always apologizes to me for it. But I tell her like, that was one of the best parties that we ever had. Like, don't
Yeah.
apologize. I loved it.
I felt really
Um,
bad.
No,
for
dude, it
her.
was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome,
So.
and I regret nothing. And she's always like, please come back, like let's do that again.
Well, maybe we
And
should.
I think she thinks that we draw a crowd like that every time, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, dude, that was like, I didn't know any of those people. I don't know what was going on. We're gonna come back and she's gonna be like, we only made $50. What's going on?
And our pipes are fine
Well,
the entire time.
Our backs are fine.
So
This is bullshit.
found
Where's
out-
the shit?
at the end of the night, I found out why everyone was there, and it was because so my sister Izzy was a vendor there, and she goes to CCS, which is like it's an art school in Detroit, and it's like right down the road from Spread Art where we played, and everyone there thought that was a CCS party, so they just came to party for
Oh.
CCS, and they were like,
I didn't
"Oh,
even know
Toad."
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to
Sick.
throw more
No,
CCS
no,
parties.
we
gotta
have
do
an
that more.
incredible draw. That's what it was.
No, I was genuinely like just totally dumbfounded looking out and seeing all those
Yeah.
all those people I mean, it's not like in a very active part. The venue's not in a very active part of the city. I mean, that's practically the only thing on that road. And it's just like, what the heck are you guys all doing here?
And I think
but it was
there's-
awesome.
I think there's something to be said about just like come one, come all. You're not at an established location. Like we're just having a good time. Come out, see some live music. We got some beers.
Yeah.
Come on
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
people,
yeah.
people
Oh,
fuck with
we
that.
put on a great show. We put on
We
a great
provided
show.
a lot
So
of beer.
yeah, beer, good
Yeah.
music. I mean, there's not many shows that you go to where you have uniquely curated like vendors selling handcrafted things alongside of just like amazing decorations that they did it all themselves. Like it was a really unique experience, and so I think it was great. You're not a lot of places you can go and smell shit for 3 hours either. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was good. A lot of work, but definitely once a year type of thing for sure. Michael, do we have time for any more stories?
Oh, you have plenty of time.
Because
You have all the time.
I want to tell the story about the Hippity Hoppity music video, and then I don't want to pick your story for you, Simon, but I think you might want to tell the story about how you joined the band.
Yeah.
Is that what you were thinking?
I was thinking that.
Right on. So I'll be quick with the Hippity Hoppity. So we used to have another member of the band, founding member, name is Brandon Kachuk, saxophone player. I think he lives in Bali now. I'm not sure if you
Really?
guys
He
have
does.
seen that. Yes.
He does live
Yeah.
in Bali.
Former heroin addict turned 2 years sober Ironman completer, like big life swing. But anyway, me and him initially had written this song called Hippity Hoppity, which he wrote the lyrics. I came up with the guitar and rhythm, and it's a satirical song about a frog. So we also we're toad like the foot, but we also embrace the animal. And satirical song about a frog who wants you to get off his property, and if you don't, he's gonna go get his glockety. But then at the end, you find out that he's actually squatting on the land. And anyway, it's deliberately goofy. But we recorded a very, again, DIY music video on like old film, John's film camera. We bought costumes. Brandon's in a frog costume. I've got like a plastic fish head on and like a sequence blouse. Jahan, the third verse is about a female crocodile landlord, and that was Jahan's character. So he is wearing a plastic crocodile head and a dress. And our drummer John,
I rock that dress too.
You look great. You look great. Our drummer John is in just like a fisherman's attire. He's not quite as like I'll get as weird as you guys, but he's along for the ride. And this was
we were lucky that he accepted be in the video.
Yeah. And this was before Simon was in the band. So Simon at a while was we just knew him as Jahan's buddy, and then he became our roadie and he became our friend. I had no idea Simon was even musical at this point, which we'll get into his story. But Simon was like, "I'll film it. I'll do the production, and I'll make the video." So that was probably one of the more fun days in the TOED lore. We went out to Belle Isle, which is this beautiful island park in between Canada and Detroit, and designed by the same people who did Central Park. And we just did various parts of the song around the island. We did one with the skyline of Detroit in the background. We did one, there's an abandoned band shell on the island, so we hopped up on there and did a verse there. And then just did like goofy things that the lyrics were saying we were doing. But some of the more unique things that happened was we bumped into a couple doing their wedding photos, and they were like so aghast, but also really pumped to see us dressed in like nonsense. And they were like, "Come get in our wedding photos." And there's a picture of me with the fish head kissing the bride, and the guy, her husband, being like, or her fiance being like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And we got all sorts of goofy pictures with them. But then the best part is there is an aquarium on Belle Isle. And it was abandoned when the city went bankrupt. It was abandoned, and now there's a conservatory that is the stewards of it. Usually there is not a lot of people there on a Saturday. You probably get maybe 10 people casually strolling through. It's not a huge aquarium. It's maybe...
It's like one hallway going down and one
Yeah.
hall going the other way.
and
It's
no
very
massive tanks. Like
simple. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we show up looking insane like we do. Jahan essentially in full drag.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it is Kids Day at the Belle Isle Aquarium. And there are like 150 small children. And that part of the music video, we've got us just walking through the Belle Isle Aquarium, and all these kids, some are like clearly like, what the hell are they doing? And others were like about it. They were like, he's a fish. He's a fish. We're in an aquarium. And
Yeah, I saw multiple parents hiding their children's eyes
Really?
at the sight of me. Yeah.
and
And we
there's-
went to a Pizzapopolis afterwards, and I walked in and I sat down, and there was a family eating dinner, and I come in, this hairy, tired, sweaty man in a dress, and I come and I sit down, and the family that was not what the family wanted. They had children, they had small children. That's not what they wanted to see, And I was like, don't worry, I'm just here for the wings.
But yeah, I mean, great day, great video, well done on the production, Simon. You
Thank you.
crushed it. Yeah, one of my fondest
Yeah.
memories of the Toad experience is there's something to be
I
said
love
about
that video.
just going out with your friends and having fun for a few hours and capturing it. It's a good time.
Yeah. Okay, so like Kai mentioned, before I was a member of the band, I was kind of like a roadie. I wasn't really forward that I was musical, I suppose. I met Jahan back in high school, and I just followed him around and watched all his gigs because he's my buddy, and we both went to Wayne together. which is the Detroit University. And then I Toad gets a gig in New York, and they invited me to come along as like their roadie, like take pictures and shit. But I was so broke at this time. I'm still pretty broke, I'm not gonna lie, but I was so broke, and there was like no way I could excuse just going to New York and like taking time off work just to take pictures of this like local band, like um so I really wanted to go. I'd never been to New York. So I asked my mom. I was like, "Hey, can you like give me a loan? I will pay you back in 2 weeks. I have this crazy opportunity to sing in New York. I just need money to get there." And I was fully lying to her. I was not singing in New York. I was just their roadie. And she surprisingly she agreed. Shout out my mom, very supportive.
Thanks, Tina.
I didn't even know you were gonna come be our roadie and help us with anything. I just thought you were gonna come hang out. You could have helped.
So then I I get there. It's literally the day of the show. We're on the subway holding all the equipment to get to the venue. And my mom calls me and is like, "Hey, I'm in New York. I'm coming to the show." And I'm like, I have like no response. So I sit down with they mentioned Brandon, the old sax player, and I'm like, "Dude, can I sing a song?" Like, and
And
he's like,
we're on the same subway, but we're in different like I don't know if we're in different cars,
no,
but
different seating like
they're
sections.
yeah, we're just different sections. So we're like very close, but none of us have no idea that this conversation is even happening.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
so we get to the venue and Brandon's like, "Simon's singing this last song. It's gonna be the blues." And luckily Jahan had a pre-written like 12 bar blues riff recorded on his phone. So he played it for me before the gig started like a couple times. And then at the end of the gig, they called me up on stage and I
Well,
freestyled.
before that, you looked like a homeless person when we got to the
Oh
gig, and we're
yeah,
like,
I was
we gotta find you some, you know what I mean? Like, where are we gonna find you clothes? You look like shit. And we walked outside the venue, and right across the street was like a boutique, secondhand, vintage, clothing kind of exchange, kind of like a very overpriced flea market. Um,
yeah.
Luckily, you could buy a
and
tiger at a moment's notice if you needed to in New York
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. And so we were just like amazed. We walked outside and we are like, wow, that's perfect timing or perfect, you know what I mean? Like that's perfect. We got him a nice shirt. Just took the shirt right off, handed it to the guy and put the shirt right on and walked into the venue.
And that was the cost of the shirt, was your old shirt, oddly enough.
Exactly.
It was a cool Rolling Stone shirt. It was a good trade.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I freestyled the song on stage, and luckily my mom got the whole thing on tape. So that song ended up being "Treat Me Right" on the All the Way Home album.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah, and since then,
that
and
was fun.
that was so fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, Kai
Good
said,
times.
like Kai said, he had no idea I could even sing. So it was, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. But basically, from the
Yeah.
second he started, we're like, all right, he's in the band. It's too good. It's too good.
Well, like Simon said, we went to high school together and I knew that, Simon was involved with musical theater. And I knew that, and even before any of this New York stuff happened, um, almost every time that I'd be at Simon's house, kind of prior to this, um, he'd be actively. I mean, he started with Guitar Hero, but nonetheless, Simon. I knew Simon loved music, and we had a very similar taste in music. And then after he graduated from Guitar Hero, he kind of wanted to learn how to play a real instrument. Not that Guitar Hero isn't a real instrument. Well, it's not, but
See, you got
and
that rock band controller in the background right now.
right, right,
I can
exactly.
actually stick a
That's exactly
Guitar
what it was.
Hero.
And so I knew, and so he started, experimenting with lyrics and melodies, and we would be playing together, and I knew that he was musical. And I just thought it was funny because Brandon came up to me just like what Simon said, but he phrased it as, Brandon comes up and he goes, "Did you know Simon can sing?" And I'm thinking like, yeah, I grew up with the guy. I know he can sing. And Brandon's just like, no. And and it's not like Simon sang for him. He could have been lying. Like Simon just told him. Brandon just believed him and was like, no way, let's put him on the stage. It's like, okay.
Brandon also once in a million character, which
Seriously.
Oh
so,
yeah. I love Brandon. Yeah.
yeah.
But Simon, what did your mom think when like? At what point did you tell her like, "Oh no, I was actually just here to like be a roadie instead of actually perform on stage," or did she not know until this very moment?
Yeah,
Did you
maybe.
ever tell
I
her?
don't know if I've ever actually directly.
I don't think we've ever told her.
But she is like my biggest fan. I remember
It's
as
true.
soon as I got on stage, like there's a decent crowd there, but all I could hear was my mom screaming. And that's generally how it is. So shout out my mom.
Yeah, she
Shout
is
out.
incredible. Sometimes when you have those shows where maybe you don't have the best crowd, maybe you're not feeling it, and you got to muster up that energy, and maybe you're feeling a little insecure. If Tina is in the audience, you are gonna feel like a fucking rock star. So
Yeah.
shout out to
There's
Tina.
nothing like a supportive mom. Nothing
Yeah.
like a supportive mom. And that New York trip was, I mean, I can say this very confidently, one of the best experiences that I have had. Just like in
For
general.
sure.
Oh,
Like it was so fun. Everything worked out so perfectly. I mean, it's not often that you go somewhere you've never been before. For me, I had no plan. Well, I don't know what we were doing. The only plan I had, the only for like certain thing that I knew we were doing was playing that show. And we were there for like 3, 4 days. I didn't know at all what we were gonna do besides that. And we had a free place to stay thanks to Kai's friend, who very generously offered his own apartment to us for us to stay there.
shout out
Public
Brennan.
transport
Also
is, yeah,
does our newsletter.
shout out Brendan. And yeah, I mean, transportation is pretty easy in New York if you take the subway. And I mean, it's just, I couldn't even sleep during that trip. Me and Simon would wake up at like 6 in the morning and we'd go on a walk and we wouldn't go back to bed until like 2. And it was just one of the greatest trips. We got so close, even though we were already close, but we just, it's like a trip can either make or break a friendship. And that really, I was like, this is an amazing, amazing time. Um, so that was an amazing trip, and I hope that we can continue like a yearly New York trip for as long as we can.
Well, we have one booked for May 10th, so we'll make it
Bam.
happen. You're gonna make me cry, John.
Let's go.
That was beautiful.
Besides, May 10th in New York and the album coming out June 21st. What else is on like the kind of like the docket for 2025 for Toad?
Yeah, so we're taking a brief.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, you can actually see we have one with the band collectively, and then we each have an individual one, and then
Right.
we do a mix and match. No, we're taking a brief hiatus from the stage. We had a big show at the end of 2024, but really gonna lock in the coming weeks and months and get this album sorted out. But that May 10th show, um, it might be our first. We've applied to a few festivals in the area, so we'll see what what happens with those. But May 10th in New York City at the Delancey. Then the album release, which will be June 21st, in Ferndale, Michigan, at the Loving Touch. And also, the two bands, I locked those in today, will be Strictly Fine, which is that jazzy jam band, and Sancho, some good friends of ours who are some bluesy garage rock cats. And then after that, in July, I think July 12th, we have a show at an acoustic venue, which we love to do an acoustic rendition of the set in Chicago called Uncommon Ground. So I think we're going to put a lot of our energy towards those 3 acts, a lot of energy towards promotion, executing the album. But then I've applied to a lot of festivals, a lot of local festivals, trying to play some more of those types of gigs in the new year. And we'll see what the album can do for us. We'll see if the tunes catch on, and hope to play them for some new people in some new areas.
Inshallah.
If anyone's looking for merch, music, or TOED in general, where can they find it?
Yeah, so well, we are on all the streamings and Bandcamp. Our Bandcamp doesn't get a lot of traction. If you want merch, it would be better to just DM us on Instagram. Instagram is probably our most frequent, our most habitual tool, most trafficked. So yeah, just DM. We got shirts, we got koozies, we got stickers. We are hoping to press some vinyl for this album. What do you got one? You got one, Simon? I want to up you. She's been in my lap the whole time.
I don't have a cat.
Yeah, then music, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you do your streaming at. Maybe we'll get some CDs made up too. I know that's kind of a foregone medium, but I think a lot of people in the local scene will still be happy to
We're gonna
buy
get some wax printed rolls where we can play them out of our phonographs.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
very
what
cheap,
else?
surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly affordable. Oh man.
Well, depending on where you
joke.
found this episode, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, or you watch the YouTube version, you got to see Kai, Simon, and Jahan's lovely faces like I did tonight. Make sure you check the hyperlinks down below. Follow them on all the socials. Be ready for new music. The rest of this album. Be ready for those shows later this year and everything else that they might have up their sleeves. Before we fully take off, do you guys have any last words for the listeners?
Prepare yourself for some real TOED shit. You know, we got 2 songs out. We got one coming out February 19th, and we will deliver you 7 more at the latest of June 21st, and that's a promise. So get ready for some real TOED shit. All you toads and toadettes. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Everyone go listen to TOED. Be ready for TOED to drop June 21st. But in the meantime, you obviously have some singles to get caught up with. Go listen to those. Be ready for everything coming next. And I'll catch everyone on the next episode. See ya.
Goodbye. Thank you for having us.